going back to my roots and talk about some ADHD stuff. But first, let's get some chicken chores out of the way. So, hi girls. Hey girls, okay, let's see. That gate's closed. That gate's closed. We're good to release the beasties for some grazing time. Hey girls. And we'll let Benny out too. Yeah. Hi girl. Hey honey. Oh, you sure kicked a whole bunch of junk into your water. Yeah. Hi honey. Hey. All right. First, let's dump this out. Ugh. And check. Okay. Main water bucket's okay. Just need to get the crates taken care of. All right, your treats. Can't forget your treats. Yeah. Some yummy, nice soaked grain, and fruit and vegetable scraps. Enjoy, along with the grass. Okay, put this there. And I'll grab hose. Yeah, let's take care of you. Let's take care of you. Oh. All right. Hi, fish player. Yeah. Bit of cramped quarters, so I'm crouched underneath the chicken coop right now for this. Hola, hola. Hi, Benny. You get that apple. That's right. That's for you. That's for you. Lo siento. I don't speak English very well, or I don't speak Spanish. I tried Duolingo for a bit, but it did not go very well. But anyway, oh, someone decided not to use the nesting boxes today. Okay, that's fine. You can lay your egg wherever. There's that one. And now let's get the rest of them. Oh. Yeah, whole 6 eggs today. Nice. For anyone who's been following along with Benny's brooding and molting and getting bullied journey, she was let out early this morning into the main enclosure with the rest of them. I just opened her gate and they got along. they all were getting along nicely for a good 2.5 hours or so before they started picking on her again. And then she got put back into her little safety cage. And now they're going to be all out for grazing time. And then hopefully that'll let them maybe be all in this one enclosure all together, getting along nicely again some more. All right. Let's get the poop bucket. But I guess while I'm doing this, while I'm cleaning cages, I'll start talking about what I wanted to talk about. Brainy stuff. So, for people who either have not been here before or have only started following me once I was mostly posting chicken content, I started this channel after I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 39 years old. And, late diagnosis, it's a bit of a learning journey, all those things. And quick recap of my discovery process for that was when COVID was starting to calm down a bit and we were starting to transition back to being at the office instead of everybody working remotely at the company I used to work for. I was struggling a lot coming back to the office because it turns out that, when you don't know any different, you just do what you got to do. But then if you start receiving an accommodation, even if that's not what you think it is, you start having the accommodation of having a lot more control over your working environment and the distractions and lighting and noise levels and such thereof. If you start going back to the way it was that's kind of crappy, and I was not doing very well. And then went to my doctor, and turns out I have ADHD and have had my whole life. I just didn't know. So so that's a quick recap. And so now I want to get into what considerations I had and what others might have as well when it comes to, there we go, put that there, when it comes to disclosing to their employer that you have ADHD. So first thing I would say is, what are you looking to accomplish? Because there's different types of work, there's different types of companies and everything, and there's laws, and then there's what the actual company's like. So sure, there may be some protections for discriminations based on disability that you'd want to take into account, but you also want to be sure that you're not going to get yourself into a very uncomfortable and or potentially toxic work situation by letting people know that you might be a little different from them. So for me, I was working for a large company, and they were, had a big kind of push about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how different ways of thinking can actually be, an advantage and all that, and the way they were, transitioning people back to the office, it seemed like, the wise thing to do would be to say, hey, I'm actually, I've found this out about myself, and I'm struggling a bit at the office. So I would like an accommodation of more time working remotely. And so that worked out for me because I was able to accomplish that. Um, and it just so happened to be that there were, leadership at the time was, had experience with, family members um, or friends or what have you, other people in their life who were neurodivergent in various ways. And so they were understanding, and it was not a particularly risky endeavor for me to talk about this and say that the cubicles and plexiglass cubicle barriers that had been put in place for COVID, and the fluorescent lights and the white noise and the fans and everything with the air circulator, like that, it was presenting me with challenges to being productive, and that the simple solution would be for me to be at home more often, where I'd be better able to control my environment. And so that was okay, but there was a lot that I put a lot of thought into it ahead of time, because there's people have preconceptions and biases about ADHD, autism, any kind of ways of thinking differently and that sort of thing. And whether they realize it or not, the reality is someone might, if they hear that you're ADHD, they might think about you differently than how they did before. And there's a risk in a workplace that, oh, well, they won't be able to focus. This person won't be able to focus. They won't be able to get work done. Maybe I won't put them in charge of this project, or maybe I'll have to micromanage them more, and then that, and then maybe I would have ended up feeling a lot more scrutiny, or not trusted, or not valued, or what have you, and that would have been ended up in a pretty crappy situation. The work itself I was doing was perfectly suited to the way I think and the way I approach things. So the work itself, now that I knew that I had ADHD, it wasn't a challenge to be in that line of work. Definitely, there's people I know who were really struggling in a job, and eventually found out that they have ADHD. And Benny, he got all the way down to the landscape fabric. Come on, get out of there. Ugh. And then they ended up, not succeeding in the job that they were in at the time, because the nature of the work, like very, tight timelines and repetitive attention to detail required, it was not really suitable. So once they knew they had ADHD, they were able to kind of feel better about, quote, failing at that job position, because it just wasn't a good fit. And that's not their fault. It wasn't that they were terrible, or that they sucked. It's just like that kind of work wasn't conducive to things, and they moved on to something that was a lot better for them. So yeah, so one thing to consider when thinking about telling an employer that you have ADHD is the nature of that work is it worth going through potentially getting somebody to think about you differently and maybe treat you differently, even unconsciously, for something that might not actually be a good fit for you to begin with. Maybe you just, you know, do what you can and find something else. Um, and once you're in a new job, thinking that's more suitable to your skills and the way you think, maybe that would work out. Maybe you think about whether you're going to disclose your needs to your employer then. Um, if it's already something that you're well suited for, then yeah, like, do you, what is your company's culture like? Are they actually, if you sit back and take an objective view of things, are they, is it a very homogenous workforce? Is everybody pretty much all the same? Or is there a variety of people and cultures and abilities and ways of thinking in your working environment? And do people thrive with that diversity? Is are people's inputs valued? In which case, great. If there's an aspect about your work and your company that make it so that, hey, telling them I have ADHD, or even not necessarily what your diagnosis is, but I have difficulty regulating my attention in this specific working environment. Um, can we make these other accommodations um, that would help me focus better, or retain information better, whatever? Then it's absolute. At that point, I would say it's worth having a discussion. But you don't owe anybody your private medical information just for the sake of being, I don't know, honest, I guess. Um, if it's not going to actually benefit you in some way. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to ramble about talking to employers that you have ADHD. Um, just, is there a goal that you think can be accomplished that would better your working relationship and your environment by disclosing the information? Great. Otherwise, uh, keep on keeping on, and maybe they don't need to know. So yeah, that's all that I had on my brain for today. And so now let's just go back to watching my cool little chickens. This one here is this one here is chicken butt. Names like guess what and chicken butt is what happens when you get chickens when your child just turned 7, and you accept their contributions to the naming to the naming of your flock. So we have guess what, chicken butt, Georgie, for curious Georgie, because she was the first one that got a name, actually, because she was the first out of the travel crate and first to explore everything. Where's Georgie? She's kind of hard to see. Anyway, she's right there. And then Duchess and Priscilla were named for their very kind of extra bathing habits. Dust baths for them could be very easily an hour and a half. They'd be quite happily just, digging themselves a very luxurious bathing hole and luxuriating and fluffing and scratching more dust up and then ruffling around. Both of them are very fastidious that way. And then Benny, short for Eggs Benedict. Yeah, those are my girls. Let's I'm just gonna shut up and we can enjoy just watching my girls. Hi, girls. Of course, I'm happy to answer questions or chit chat or whatever. Though I found sometimes people's chats don't actually show up for me when I'm live. So if you said something and I can understand it and I don't respond, I might not have seen it. And if so, I'm sorry. Let's see, over there right now we have Duchess close, the furthest away, with the floppiest comb, and guess what is a little bit closer? All right, Mr. Brain Soup came out earlier and dropped off a coffee for me. Thank you, Mr. Brain Soup. Hey, Benny. Having fun over there? Now the question becomes, once grazing time is over and you're back in the enclosure, do you think you can stand up for yourself? If the other girls start picking on you, will you stand up for yourself, or will you just flinch and run away and hide and keep making yourself seem like a vulnerability to predators? Because that will change whether you go back into your safe cage or just in amongst with everybody. What do you think, huh? You don't think anything right now, you just think bugs, 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 bugs. How about you, Priscilla? Will you stop being a mean old bully? I know it's you and Georgie and Duchess are the worst offenders. Chicken Butt and Guess What are pretty chill when it comes to Benny. Will you just mind your own business, please? Coffee. Oh my goodness. What are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you over in the corner on the porch? We're not going to let you into the house. And there's no bugs back there. Or are there? What'd you find? Hmm? Oh, you found a spider nest or something? Yeah. Found got caught in a cobweb. That's what happens when you go in weird secret corners. Yeah, when you go in weird secret corners, then get uh, you get cobwebs on your beak. Hey, guess what? I don't want to see you trying to nest in this little back corner there either. Yeah. Just go in where the actual yard is, where the grass and bugs and interesting things are. Right. Scooch. That's right, scooch. There, see, much more interesting. Dirt and bugs and green things to eat. Way more fun than the porch. Hey there, Priscilla. And I'm gonna move back into the shade because I'm super pale and easy to sunburn. Oh, yeah. Duchess is close to Benny. Hey, look at that, Benny. Look at that. You can exist in the same space. And if you're not freaking out about it, you're going to get left alone. See? See? Yeah. Oh, I'm going to go. Hey, yeah, I can just exist in the same space. Just exist in. Yeah, look at that, Benny. If you're not freaking out, they're not freaking out. Yeah. You can just exist together. It's true. See? You can exist together nicely. That was awesome. Chirp, chirp. I agree. Chirp, chirp. Hi, Duchess. She was doing nothing. You didn't have to run away. You better not have been doing anything. That's right. I'm watching you. Don't you be bullying your sister. Okay. I need to finish my coffee and get these girls back into their enclosure in a few minutes. So, you know, I'll finish my coffee before I call it into the live. Extra chicken time is always good. Isn't that right, girls? Isn't that right, Georgie? Yep. Hey, Georgie. Your feathers are looking very lustrous today. Yes, you're so pretty. You're so pretty. Benny, they wouldn't chase you if you didn't make yourself a chaseable target. Georgie, leave her. Be nice. I'll get the hose. Don't think I won't. All right, hose and back to bully deterrent mode. And here I was thinking I could just put you all back in without needing to put Benny aside in the little isolation cage. Silly me. Silly me. All right, that was the last sip of coffee. So I'm going to start putting these girls back in, which I need both hands for. So thanks for hanging out with me. If you stayed all the way through my random rambling, appreciate it. Anyone who wants to, like, subscribe, do all those YouTubey things to help me get out a little more, would be much obliged. And yeah, have a great rest of your day, everybody, or whatever time zone you're in. And yeah, catch you in the next one. Toodles.